Okay, Jeff. So it is certainly an honor for me to get a chance to talk to you. I've been a fan of your work for many, many years. Um, and this new solo album that you have out is really cool. You're doing a complete album of duets, and you've got some big name people lined up on this to work with you. So this is really something different for you, I think. Can you tell me a little bit about creating this album?
Sure thing. I mean, first of all, thank you for the compliment. I do appreciate that. I appreciate anybody interested in me after all these years and all these records and projects, et cetera, et cetera. It's a blessing truly to still be listened to and desired out there. And so I appreciate all the ears that are listening in and all the loyalty out there. But yeah, this album came about mainly because earlier this year we were still kind of unaware what was going to happen with the rest of the world, when we're going to be normal again, so to speak, when things are going to be opening up, when we could do whatever, all of the above. There's no point to even to talk about it, because we're all in the same boat.
Sure.
That being said, I just had a conversation with Frontiers. Basically, we agreed that the best thing for all of us to do in staying relevant and making sure that we're there for the people, because music is basically therapy for everyone, including the artists who put it out. So I wanted to stay busy. I wanted to do stuff that necessarily is, I'm not pushing more new agendas in terms of new music. When we were talking about, well, what can we do to kind of pass the time, transitional albums, transitional something, the first thing they said, well, the obvious thing would be doing a covers album. And I wasn't so interested in that. I've done too many covers in my lifetime. You could you could throw a stone out there and you probably get like 3 albums worth of tributes and covers that I've done through my years. So to do just another one, another collection of covers, I thought maybe, I don't know, maybe it's not something that the fans are really going to be interested in. So I took it to the next level of digging into my own career. I remember singing on a Michael Schenker tribute album a few years ago. And it was a cool concept because it was a tribute to Michael Schenker's entire career, from UFO to the MSG band and all those things that he'd done, but he was playing guitar on them. It was various singers, various musicians on every song, but he was actually playing guitar on an album. I thought, you know what? How about elaborating on that concept? Because Lord knows I have a wealth of material to draw from. And then I took it to the next level. Instead of me singing everything all over again, who needs another version of something that everybody already knows and loves? Why don't I bring in some good friends of mine, and especially people within the Frontiers Records umbrella, and see what we can do with that?
Yeah, and I was ecstatic to see. I mean, you've got some really, stuff on here from over the course of your career, like Calling All Girls from Eyes. I mean, I loved Eyes, and that's of course out of print.
Right.
It's just not something people can get nowadays. And so, seeing songs like that put on here, I was really, really pleased and happy, because there's a lot of guys like me, I'm sure, that are, collectors of all of this stuff. And
Right.
this is the only way you're going to hear that unless you have
Yeah.
one of those. And it's
And
you definitely have a who's who of people here. Tell me about how you picked the lineup of people to record these songs with. How did that come about?
Well, obviously it started with the song selection. Had to come to terms and agreement with that with the label, and I always try to include Frontiers into my releases as much as possible, because for 2 reasons. I mean, you get the label involved in what you're doing. There's usually a little more passion behind it when it's released. There's a little more priority put behind it, because they feel like they're a part of the creation.
Sure.
And so that being said, I asked them to give me kind of a master wish list of songs that they would like me to cover on this record. So they pretty much chose about 80% of them. I kind of did the rest in terms of filling in what I personally thought and felt should be in there. And that it started with the songs. So from that, clearly I made a master list of who I want to sing on the record. And then from there, I had to basically do what a casting director would do in terms of casting a movie or a role with actors and actresses. I saw the songs, I saw the list, and I said that voice would fit perfectly with that. And it was spot on. Everybody that did their vocals, there were no issues. There was no, hey, oh, you kind of sang that wrong or different. I wanted everybody to do them. I wanted them to give me their interpretation of how they would sing a song of mine if somebody said, hey, you're going to do this song for your next album. Let's see what you got. And it was great because I didn't have to coach anyone. I didn't have to, I just let everybody be them. And I, for the most part, stuck to script. I didn't want to redo things or give too much of a spin because, again, people are used to hearing the songs a certain way. You do them too differently, and it's going to be like, I wasn't really into a reinvention of something that I know and love so long. So I kind of stuck to script. Musically, we kind of stuck to script, and we didn't change anything or add any nuances or different parts to kind of change the original structure of the songs. And I just let the singer shine and do the thing.
Yeah, and it came out great. And I think, you know, you were correct to let people be themselves, you know, because that really, it's really apparent, you know, that everybody has their own style, but it fits well, you know, it really fits well. So obviously
Yeah,
the
and
first,
it's great because I've done covers in the past where, you know, or if I'm doing a tribute album or if I'm singing on something that I remember doing a Van Halen tribute song on a Van Halen tribute album. And I did my best to try to sound like David Lee Roth. I didn't want to sound like me. I wanted to sound as true to the original. Of course, I won't sound like David, but if you're hearing me kind of trying to kind of bring forth verbatim what he did, kind of impersonating him, it's still going to sound like me, but it's still going to sound kind of cool and authentic. And I didn't necessarily want that with these guys. I didn't want them to try and emulate me. I wanted them to just do them. And again, I couldn't be happier with the results.
yeah, not looking for a karaoke version, right?
Exactly.
Well, yeah, I mean, the people you lined up, it's just perfection. The songs are great. Obviously, I was excited to see "Don't Let It End" on here.
Yeah.
You know, huge fan of your work from your early days there with Yngwie. And you were 19, right, when you started with Yngwie? Is that correct?
I was 18. I joined them
18.
in September '84, and I turned 19 in November of '84. So
Wow.
I was still, I could literally still say I was 2 months from being 19. I was 2 months, you know, still 18 years old. And yeah, it's such a, it's such a thing I speak of now with absolute pride because you kind of take for granted the things you do when you do them. You know, you look at it, that's par for the course. That's what you're supposed to do. But when you reflect back, when you're older, especially now that we're talking about almost 40 years ago, and you realize, oh my God, I was just a baby. You realize even seeing your own kids and seeing the things that they're doing or not doing, you know, if they're not ambitious and going for all the things in life that we did or I did as a teenager, it just really makes me reflect on how young I was, but I still had this goal and this ambition in my life to be somebody, to be seen and recognized and respected in the business. And so, yeah, I look back at I was so excited to do that song and bring out something that far back in my life and my career that I wouldn't have done the album without it.
Yeah, and going back to that song originally, back when you did it, of course, with Yngwie, were you aware of the magnitude of that project, of how that would propel you into the industry at that time? Or
1 billion% yes, because I was a big fan of, I was a fan of Yngwie's when the Steeler album came out. Never mind the actual Alcatraz album, which obviously took it over the top. That's when everybody in the world got to hear and see and make Yngwie such an iconic presence in the music industry at that time. And so, of course, when I sent my my demo tape to audition for his band, I was like, I'll be happy if he just listens to me. I have no expectation that he'll actually ask me to join the band. And so it absolutely, I say with absolute pride now that, you know, these were my humble beginnings, and I own them to the extent of without this, the entire course of my career would have been completely different.
sure, I mean, and a lot's been made, of course, you know, Yngwie's comments and things, but
Yeah.
Yngwie's Yngwie.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll let Yngwie be Yngwie as far as I'm concerned. I made a pact a few years ago when I was inducted to the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame. During my acceptance speech, I made sure to mention from this point forward, you're not going to hear a negative tone or comment coming from me to Yngwie or towards Journey or anything ever again, because bottom line is I'm where I am because of these people. These people gave me a shot. These people, especially Yngwie, I'm talking 1984. I'm just an 18-year-old Puerto Rican kid, and I was given an opportunity to front him, and he respectfully chose me to be that representative of his music. So to me now, when I reflect back on it, it's so important to me. It's such a huge thing for me to talk about today.
Yeah, and it's amazing if you think about it. I mean, here you are at that point, 18 years old. I mean, a lot of kids, especially if they weren't going to college, I mean, they could have very well been working at Burger King, and you're out on stage with this heavy metal guitar virtuoso,
But you know what?
blowing up the.
I personally think it would have happened eventually. Everything in life happens for a reason, and it would have been a completely different course had I not started with Yngwie. Of course, my drive and ambition would have been the same, and I would have literally, I would have pursued it until the death. Even if I never reached it at this age, I would have still been pursuing it.
Well, I mean, you're just a super talented dude. Very busy guy. You're one of the guys I consider kind of a journeyman of rock here, because you literally have something on the back burner and the front burner, seems like constantly. You're a very busy guy, working from one project to another, your solo albums, I mean, it's just amazing the amount of stuff that you're involved in.
Well, you know what? It's funny. I used to get criticized a lot, and people still today don't understand how I have so much time to do so much work, and how much time I have to do to be able to be on so much work. And I learned this work ethic so long ago, when even back in the days when I was a massive Prince fan, which I still am, and you used to hear all the stories about this guy's got a vault. Yeah, and you picture like a bank vault. Every time you read these kind of things, you picture certain images, but that he had a vault and a wealth of material that no one's ever heard and nobody would ever hear. And I thought that was so cool, that he worked so much, that he put so much emphasis on his craft and his love for music, that it's not a matter of even how many things that he's supposed to be doing. He's doing it because he can't help it. It's just coming. It's in his DNA. He's just doing it. And I thought that was such a great attitude to have. And to be honest with you, it served me in so many different ways, in challenging myself and learning new experiences, and learning how to tap into things that weren't normally in my wheelhouse. And I've learned so much by doing things with so many people. Again, I wouldn't change a thing in terms of the quantity of what I've been putting out there, whether anybody feels or thinks that the quality is not as much there. I don't look at it that way, because every single thing I do is just as important as the last, whether you agree or not. It's par for the course. I needed to keep growing and learning.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that, because I think a lot of the other artists that I respect, within the industry too, have had similar traits. A lot of the fans are like, oh, if they're doing this much material, they're spreading themselves a little too thin. And like you said, you hear comments, maybe the quantity isn't as good, but I would disagree. Especially you have people like Eddie Van Halen, who also has a vault, like you say, of just hours upon hours of his playing that he analyzed, listened to just for his own self-gratification, and
Right.
recording and trying to improve what he was doing. George Lynch, another one of those guys. You've got a guitarist who's constantly doing something, but it's in his blood. And I think it's sort of that old analogy. If you find something you like doing, it's not a job, right? It's what
Absolutely.
you do.
And it's kind of funny. The other day I was thinking, there's so many things, especially in 2020, when we were just hunkered down at home and couldn't go anywhere. I worked more in my life than I've ever in my entire career. And I literally was in the studio every day, whether I was doing sessions, helping people out with certain songs and demos and movie soundtracks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's so much out there that I have a feeling will not come out or won't be heard in a big way. It's going to be a lot of people that I work with that they hired me to hopefully release it and get notoriety on their own recognizances, but might not get as much. I thought, what, maybe one day I'll take everything that I did in 2020 and release like the COVID the COVID tapes or something like that. Just something that shows all the work that I did in the course of, and maybe even release a DVD with it with all the stupid quarantine videos that we had to do. And my God, it would be probably a triple album based on how
Box
much.
set.
I mean, if you add everything that was released, it truly was a nonstop period for me. But again, this to me was my only outlet of sanity. I had to do this, and it truly was something that kept me going. It kept me ticking while we were waiting to get back to normal again.
Yeah, and I think that's really smart because I mean, what else can you do during a pandemic? And I know a lot of the bands were, kind of just up in arms. Well, great, we can't tour, and that's what we do. But
Right.
I mean, you can record. That's the time to, I think, to sit down, to hunker down, and do this kind of material. And
Yeah.
your time was well spent, considering that we were all kind of quarantined and locked down and so forth. It looks like you've made the best of a bad situation, kind of the lemon from lemonades, if you will.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say I made a lot of lemonade last year.
What would you, which one of these songs on your new Duets album are you the most proud of how it came out?
It is a toss-up, and I'm proud of all of them equally. But as far as the ones that give me goosebumps, and it's mainly because there's two reasons. It's the main thing is because it started. My history is right there at the very beginning of it, and that would be "Don't Let It End" with Dino.
Sure.
I knew immediately if I got Dino on this track, I look at Dino as myself when I was his age, up and coming, just really honing into my craft, trying to show the world what I got. And so it's almost like me going back to the very beginning, and then now taking one of my apprentices, so to speak. I'm not going to say that he's only as good as he is because he listens to me. I'm just saying in general, taking somebody that's followed me and got something from me and putting him on something on the same. It's kind of like a regeneration.
Yeah.
So that one excites me so much, especially the job that Howie Simon did with the guitar work. He literally went verbatim, note for note on Yngwie's solos. And it's incredible how he pulled it off, because it still sounds like him. It doesn't sound like he's trying to impersonate Yngwie, but it sounds like he's paying homage to him when he's doing his parts. But everything about that track really, it puts the hair standing up on my arms, because it again, as we were starting this conversation, it just reminds me of where it all began. And it really, it freaks me out that it was almost 40 years ago that this whole ride began.
It goes
but then
fast.
Coming in at a close second, if not tied, it's tied in first place, is the one I did with Dean Castronovo. Everybody knows what an amazing voice Dean has provided for Journey.
Sure.
Since he's been with them. And of course, now he's done a few things with Revolution Saints and the Castronova Gioeli thing. People now recognize him as a singer, but more so they recognize him as somebody that can sound and reproduce that classic Perry sound. When we wrote the songs, Coming Home, Neil and I wrote that song.
Mm-hmm.
It was the very first one we worked together on for Soul Circus. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I can't wait to dig into this, because I'm really going to give it that Journey treatment. It's going to be my tribute to Steve. If this song were his, what he might do to it. That's exactly how I treated it. So of course, the only other person I would want to sing on this song as a duet with me is Steve Perry, and that ain't going to happen. So getting Dean on this was just as important and just as exciting for me. And again, I listen to that song now, and I just feel like it just destroys the original version, just because I've got that magical voice singing along with me.
Yeah, and I think he's really underrated as a vocalist. I mean, a lot of people, think of him as clearly a drummer, but I mean,
yeah, no, he's not underrated. He just downplays it. It's not so much underrated. He just downplays it. He's like, I'm no singer. I'm not. I'm never going to be a front man. I'm a drummer who sings. Blah blah blah. He downplays it so much. Of course, he remains humble by it. But the fact that he's that good, it just needs to be heard. And I'm so happy that he said yes to being on this, and that he was a part of this.
So looking back on that, and I know, I prefer to avoid, negativity, of course, on this, but you have a history there with Journey as well.
Yeah.
Which I would have liked to have seen an album with you. Obviously, many of your fans would. What do you take from that situation nowadays? when you look back at it?
Well, again, it was harder based on as time passes, obviously it gets easier, it gets better, it gets more tolerable, and then you stop thinking. You stop thinking about the what the repercussions, and you start remembering what it did for you and what you did for it.
Mhm.
And so that being said, it's just something I'm very proud to be a part of that. I'm beyond proud that they chose me to be a part of that. I wish I could be more recognized as I was the permanent singer at one point, because obviously it stings a little bit when I don't get to see the credit of what I brought to the band, even though it's just live shows. Like you said, I don't have an album or even a live DVD to draw from. I was just basically filling the shoes and getting them through the year. But once I was inducted as their permanent singer, that to me was more important than just doing the shows I did in 2006.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, that helped elevate your name, whether you stayed with the band or not.
Right.
It's one of those things that I spoke a couple of days ago with Gus G, was Ozzy's guitarist for one album. And I asked him, how that affected him. And he's because, a lot of journalists will put, ex-Ozzy guitarist Gus G, and I'm sure you get the same thing, ex-Yngwie Malmsteen vocalist, and, different things.
Right.
And he said, hey, I have no problem with it. It's, kind of like what you said, that, this is how I got to where I'm at. So, fire away, so to speak. And I think that's true, after a while. I mean, I can totally agree with you. I'm sure that would sting in the beginning, and, a little bit like any kind of job where somebody let you go and you wondered what you did wrong, and,
right,
or why this didn't work, the way you had hoped. And
all of the
but
above.
I think ultimately
Absolutely.
it worked out, for both of you guys. I mean, for Journey and for what you're doing, because
Well, yeah,
your
and
material
again,
gets better and better with age. You're definitely like a fine wine. It just continues to improve with each output. So,
and I absolutely wish them well. And that's my thing. I want the water under the bridge. I want to be able to go to a Journey show again and go see them and go give them hugs and feel like I was at one point part of the family.
sure.
And you know what? I'm patient. I'm not gonna expect anything to happen from me reaching out, extending that olive branch. But bottom line is, I'm hoping at some point in time, even Yngwie himself, that we can kind of break bread again and just even eventually become old men sitting in a retirement home talking about the old days. That to me is the ultimate ending to this entire chapter that I call my career.
Well, as far as Yngwie goes, I'll say one thing. Yngwie is a talented guitarist. I love his work, but he could definitely use you as a vocalist. If anybody's listened to his last couple albums, and I'm just going to leave that right there.
You know what? He's trying something that he feels is necessary for his career and his decisions now, and more power to him. If people don't like it, then he's going to have to hopefully realize that and try and try something else that either is proven or that he knows they're going to accept. But for the most part, I got to give it to him. I remember so many times where I'm trying a different musical outlet and my fans go crazy. No, they're basically screaming, "We don't want this. We want Jeff to sing like this style of music, etc. Who wants this crap?" And so basically everybody gets berated by their fans at one point, because as artists, we don't want to be stagnant. We don't want to just be stuck in one place. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I'll bring up another example, AC/DC. Sure. They knew their niche and they basically stayed on course with it. But to me, it basically sounds like they're doing the same album year after year, decade after decade.
I agree.
And that's not enough for me and some of us out there that want to keep trying to branch out and see if we can actually tap into something that people will accept. In the meantime, we can only do what we can do.
Well, I've always found you to be pretty creative, and you kind of tell, even with one song on an album or this or that, where you're kind of taking some creative chances and trying to kind of, push the envelope a little bit in certain areas. And that's impressive, because I think as an artist, you have that creativity. You're going to want to kind of push the envelope a little bit just to test the waters to see how that goes. Considering how busy you are, because like I said, you're always in something, what else have you got lined up for 2021? Because I have a feeling this is not the only release we're going to see from you this year.
Well, 2021, this is the last, the Duets album comes out.
Well, it's October,
Uh,
so yeah, maybe.
yeah. And so, yeah, there's nothing else slated for 21. I'm literally, as soon as I'm done with all my interviews today, I'm doing the final touches on the lead vocals of my next solo album.
Nice.
We started working on that based on the mentality of delivering it by the end of the year and having it released early 2022 as my sort of 20-year anniversary with Frontiers album.
Nice.
So
Okay.
that alone I'm excited about because we're celebrating 2 decades. And in my life and career, I don't really have anything that I'm known for sticking with for 2 decades. And so it's kind of exciting. Talisman and Frontiers are the longest lasting career relationships I've ever had. And yeah, so I'm doing it again with Alessandro Del Vecchio. He did such a stellar job in kind of writing and thinking and emoting the kind of record he wanted to hear from JSS when he wrote the material, when he wrote the music. And it was such a blessing and such a joy to work with him, and so easy that I said, we have to do it again. I need you to work with me and make that quintessential JSS album that sounds like it's got all the best elements of what people expect to know of me. And he did it once again. He just knocked it out of the ballpark. So yeah, we're mixing that and turning this in by the end of October. I'm on the interview trail, promotion trail for the duets, and I'm just going to keep them pumping out, man.
Well, great, man. Like I said, this is a fantastic album. I urge all of our listeners to get it because it's even if you're familiar with the songs, if you're a fan of yours over the years, it's not one of those things. It's not a rehash. It's not like you just put this stuff in a Xerox machine. You really did kind of crank this out and to be a whole different animal, and it's very enjoyable because of that. So
that's awesome. I appreciate that, and I'm hoping, I'm hoping that same enthusiasm is there, not just picking it up or listening to it. I really hope that this can be something that people will revisit and listen to further. And again, I'm going to go back to, which I should have started the interview with. I named it Volume 1 kind of as a piss take. It's more like a, hey, this will be there'll be a Volume 2, 3, 5, and 13 if you guys like this one. So let's start here. And if I remember the Mel Brooks movie, History of the World Part 2, and everybody's going, wait a minute, when was Part 1? And it threw people for a loop. There was never supposed to be a Part 1, never was going to be a Part 1. But the fact that, the fact that he called it that, it just had a little more excitement to the title of the movie and made people think a little bit. So if I can get a little bit, I love double entendre. If people see it as it's going to be more, great. If they see it as, if they like this, they'll be more, great. If they see it as, oh, that's just the title, it means nothing, even better.
Well, the feedback I'm getting from everyone is, yeah, people are in love with this album. So yeah, I think there'll be a Volume 2. I'm pretty sure of it from everything I'm hearing from your fans. They're really eating this up. So
that's awesome. I really hope so. And again, I've got a wealth of material that I've already even thought of what would be on a Volume 2, 3, and 4. There's just so much music that I would love to do with my friends, and even furthering the idea. I mean, maybe doing even an all-female version of a JSS Duets album. I would really want to mix it up and come up with other ideas and other thoughts of something like this. And it truly can become many volumes, much in the way that Rod Stewart was doing the American songbook albums.
yeah,
He was doing really old classics, and it turned into a series of things. And I think this would be just as cool if I could turn it into that.
yeah. Well, you've definitely got my vote. It's a spectacular release. Can't wait for everybody else to hear it. I think we only got a couple of days now, so
Yes, sir. 2 days. It's 2 days away.
yeah, so you're there. So release date is pretty much upon us. Well, man, it
Yes,
is such a pleasure and an honor to get a chance to talk to you. Like I said, I've been a fan of your work since you started out in the early days there with Yngwie, and everything you've done. Again, quality stuff, man. Just great. So appreciate you taking your time. I know you're busy to sit down and talk with us at Excess Rock, and hopefully we can do this again when your next solo album comes out.
Much obliged, my friend. Let's do it again sometime, Bobby.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All the best.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.